Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, and taking selfies under the fairy lights when I saw her. An old woman sitting alone at the far end of the wedding hall. Her back was slightly bent, her hair silver and thin like threads of smoke. She wasn't talking to anyone. She wasn't smiling, just watching. Her eyes followed me the entire night, and for reasons I couldn't explain. It made my chest feel heavy. I was at my cousin's wedding, surrounded by noise and joy. But something about that old woman pulled at me. Maybe it was the loneliness in her face, that quiet kind of sadness that doesn't need words to be understood. When I finally gathered the courage to approach her, she looked up as if she had been expecting me. "You look like him," she said softly. "Like who?" I asked, a little confused. She smiled faintly. "Like the groom. But your eyes, they're different. You see things others don't." Her voice was fragile, like it carried decades of secrets. I tried to smile politely. "Thank you, ma'am. Can I get you something to drink?" She shook her head slowly. "No, but there's something you need to see." Her words froze me. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, her whisper trembling like the air before a storm. "When the dancing starts, go to the groom's table and look under it." For a moment, I thought she was joking, but her eyes, dark, clear, piercing, told me she wasn't. Then she stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd before I could ask another word. The rest of the evening felt strange. The music started, people danced, and laughter filled the hall, but I couldn't shake her words. I tried to focus on the celebration, my cousin and his bride, radiant and glowing. But my mind kept drifting back to that whisper. "Look under the table." Finally, curiosity won. I walked toward the groom's table, pretending to fix my phone camera as if I were taking a video. My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding. I crouched slightly, lifted the white lace cloth that covered the front of the table, and froze. There was a small black box taped underneath. At first, I thought it was just part of the decoration setup, but then I saw the faint red light blinking on the side. My chest tightened. I reached out, peeled it off carefully, and realized it was a recorder. Someone had been recording the table, the groom's table, all night. My pulse quickened. I slipped it into my pocket and walked outside, my thoughts racing. Who would place a recorder there? And why did that old woman tell me about it? When I got outside, I looked around for her, but she was gone. Not sitting where she'd been, not walking anywhere nearby, just gone. I went to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and pressed play. The first few seconds were just noise, laughter, chatter, the clinking of glasses. Then came voices. Familiar ones, my cousin's voice. The groom, and then another voice. A woman's, whispering. "I can't believe you're really going through with this," she said. He laughed softly. "Relax, she'll never find out." "It's just for the money." My stomach dropped. The recording continued. "And after the honeymoon?" she asked. "After the honeymoon?" he said coldly. "She's gone. I'll make sure of it." The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I couldn't breathe. My cousin, the man everyone admired, the one the whole family celebrated, was planning something horrifying. And that old woman. Somehow she knew. I looked up at the sky, my heart pounding, the sound of music still echoing from the hall behind me. The fairy lights that looked beautiful minutes ago now felt haunting. I had two choices: walk back inside and pretend nothing happened, or tell the truth and destroy the wedding. I closed my eyes. My hands were shaking. And then I remembered her words again. "You see things others don't." I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked back toward the hall, ready to face whatever came next. The moment I stepped back into that hall, it felt like the air itself had changed. The music was still playing, people were still laughing, but in my ears it all sounded distant, muted, like a movie playing underwater. My cousin stood at the center of the dance floor, his arm wrapped proudly around his new bride. He looked so happy, so convincing, that for a second, I almost doubted what I'd heard. Almost. I walked toward him slowly, every step heavier than the last. My hands trembled, but I clenched them tightly, trying to steady myself. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to ruin someone's wedding, unless I absolutely had to. As I neared the table again, I caught sight of my aunt, his mother, beaming at the couple, tears in her eyes. She'd been through so much just to see her son succeed. My chest tightened. How could I shatter her happiness with what I knew? That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around. It was the old woman. Her face was calm, almost sorrowful, as she said, "You listened, didn't you?" I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" She sighed deeply. "Someone who's already lost everything because of him." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Her eyes glistened as she looked past me toward the groom. 3 years ago, he promised to marry my daughter. He took everything from her savings, her trust, her pride. Then he disappeared. She couldn't take it. Her voice cracked and she looked down, her hands trembling. She ended her life because of that man. I came here tonight to make sure no other woman becomes his victim. I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. Your daughter. Yes, she swallowed hard. And when I saw you, I knew you had the courage I no longer have. Before I could reply, there was a sudden shout from across the room. Someone had spotted me standing beside her. "Hey, what's going on there?" It was one of my uncles waving his hand. I froze. My cousin noticed too. His smile faltered for a second when his eyes met mine. That one look told me everything. He knew. He knew I'd found the recorder. The room began to blur. The music stopped. All eyes turned toward us. "Everything okay?" the bride asked, confusion clouding her voice. I swallowed hard and pulled the small black device from my pocket. "No," I said quietly. "It's not." I stepped closer to the DJ booth and handed the recorder to him. "Please, play this." The groom's face went pale. "No, stop." But it was too late. The speakers crackled, and his voice filled the hall. His laughter. His words. His cold promise. "After the honeymoon, she's gone. I'll make sure of it." The hall erupted in gasps. The bride's bouquet fell from her hands. My aunt clutched her chest, stumbling backward. My cousin tried to run toward the DJ booth, but 2 men grabbed him before he could get there. The bride turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Tell me it's not true," she whispered. He froze, unable to speak, and in that silence, the truth spoke louder than anything else. The old woman stepped forward, her frail voice cutting through the chaos. "You destroyed one life. You won't destroy another." The groom looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time that night, I saw fear in his eyes. Security came soon after. The police were called. Guests whispered, some in shock, others in disbelief. The celebration turned into a crime scene, the lights dimmed, and the music never played again. As the chaos faded, I looked for the old woman, but she was gone once more. Just like before. Only this time, she left something behind. A folded napkin on the table with a single line written in shaky handwriting. "Thank you for seeing what others chose to ignore." I sat down, tears burning in my eyes, realizing that sometimes the people who appear out of nowhere aren't strangers, they're messengers. They arrive not to change their fate, but to give you the chance to change yours. And that night, I did. The wedding hall was silent long after the police had taken him away. The decorations still shimmered under the golden lights, but they looked empty now, like the shell of a memory that had died too soon. The bride sat quietly in one corner, her face pale, her mascara smudged from tears. I wanted to go to her, to say something. But what could I possibly say? That I was sorry? That I'd found out too late? That I wished this night had never happened? Instead, I stood by the open door, breathing in the cold night air, trying to calm the storm inside me. That's when my aunt approached me. Her hands trembled and her voice broke when she spoke. You knew, didn't you?" I nodded slowly, my throat tightening. I didn't believe it at first. "Someone told me to look under the table." Her eyes widened. "Who?" "The old woman," I said softly. "She said she lost her daughter because of him." My aunt's expression changed. She gripped my arm, her voice almost a whisper. "That woman, she came here once before, years ago, when your cousin was just starting his career. She caused a scene outside his office, crying, saying he ruined her family. We thought she was just unwell. She looked away, guilt clouding her face. We didn't believe her. A chill ran through me. So she was telling the truth all along. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. And I ignored her. I told her to leave us alone. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The night felt heavier now, filled with the ghosts of choices and consequences. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the bride stand up. Her steps were slow, but there was strength in them. She walked straight to me, her eyes red but steady. "You saved me," she said, her voice shaking. I shook my head. "No, She stopped me gently. "No, you listened. You paid attention when no one else did. If you hadn't, I don't know what would have happened." Her words pierced through me. I didn't feel like a hero, just a witness to something terrible. But in her eyes, I saw gratitude and a kind of strength that only comes from heartbreak. "Do you know where she went?" she asked quietly. "The old woman?" I looked around. "No, she always disappears before I can ask anything." The bride smiled sadly. "Maybe she doesn't need to be found. Maybe she only shows up where she's needed." Her words stayed with me long after everyone went home. I couldn't sleep that night. The scene replayed in my mind. The laughter, the whisper, the discovery, the recording. And that old woman's eyes, filled with sorrow, yet shining with something pure. At dawn, I drove back to the wedding venue. The staff was cleaning up the mess. Broken glass, wilted flowers, a forgotten shoe near the dance floor. But I wasn't there for any of that. I was looking for her. Outside, near a small bench under a tree, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A faded photo pinned to the wooden post. It was a picture of a young woman with bright eyes and a shy smile. At the bottom, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "In loving memory of Miriam. Gone but not forgotten." I touched the corner of the photo, and something inside me broke open. The old woman wasn't just saving someone, she was saving her daughter's memory. She was making sure that what happened to Miriam would never happen again. And maybe that's what all of us are meant to do. In one way or another. Turn our pain into protection for others. As I stood there under the morning light, I whispered, "Thank you." The wind moved through the trees gently, almost like an answer, and for the first time that night, I felt peace. Weeks passed, but the memory of that night refused to fade. It haunted me in small, quiet ways, the sound of laughter at parties, the sight of wedding decorations in shop windows, even the smell of roses. Everything reminded me of that moment when truth tore through illusion. Life moved on for everyone else. The bride, now ex-wife, disappeared from the city, determined to start anew somewhere far away. My cousin's trial made the local news for weeks. His charm, his career, his name, all crumbled like dust under the weight of his own greed. My family struggled with the shame, but deep down, I knew this was necessary. Sometimes it takes destruction for truth to breathe, but me? I couldn't let go of that old woman, her eyes, her voice, that trembling whisper. You see things others don't. I needed to understand how she knew, how she found the strength to come back after all she'd lost. So I started searching. I went back to the venue, asked the staff if they'd seen her again. No one had. I checked nearby shelters, old age homes, even the church down the road. Some people remembered a quiet old woman who came by every few weeks, leaving flowers at the back pew. But no one knew her name. One afternoon I found myself sitting on a park bench, exhausted from the search, when a priest walked by. He looked at me and paused. "You look troubled, my child," he said kindly. I hesitated. "I'm looking for someone. An old woman who used to visit your church, maybe? She lost her daughter, a long time ago." He nodded slowly, his face softening with recognition. "Ah, you must mean Sister Miriam's mother. She used to come here often, sat right there, under the window, every Sunday." My heart skipped. "Sister Miriam?" He smiled sadly. "Yes, her daughter's name was Miriam. A gentle soul. She was part of the choir before tragedy struck." I felt a lump in my throat. "Do you know where her mother is now?" The priest sighed. "She passed away 2 weeks ago." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world around me blurred. The laughter of children, the rustle of leaves, the distant sound of bells. "Gone? Just like that?" he continued softly. "Before she died, she left something for someone she said would come looking for her. She didn't give a name, only said, 'The one who sees things others don't.'" My eyes widened. "That's me." The priest nodded and walked into the small office by the church. A few minutes later, he returned with a small brown envelope, old and wrinkled, sealed with care. My hands trembled as I took it. Inside, there was a folded letter and a locket. I opened the letter first. The handwriting was uneven, shaky, but filled with warmth. "If you're reading this, it means you listened when others stayed silent. Thank you for saving a life when I couldn't save my daughters. I have carried guilt for years, but tonight, you gave her peace. You reminded me that even in my pain, there's still purpose. Don't stop seeing. Don't stop listening. The world needs people like you. People who notice the cries hidden behind smiles. Love, the old woman who once sat alone at a wedding." By the time I finished reading, tears had blurred the words. I held the locket close. It had a small picture of Miriam on one side, and a simple engraving on the other. "See with your heart." That night, as I walked home under the dim street lights, something in me changed. I realized the world is full of pain we never notice, people crying quietly in corners, hearts breaking behind polite smiles. And sometimes all it takes is one person willing to look under the table, to see what others refuse to see, to change everything. Since that day, I made a promise. To speak up when I see wrong, to help when someone's voice trembles, to notice the unnoticed. Because the truth is, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes. They just pay attention, and every time I pass a wedding, I still whisper a silent prayer for Miriam, for her mother, and for all the souls who just needed someone to see them before it was too late. Because sometimes, one small act of awareness can rewrite destiny. Life has a way of testing us, not through the moments we understand, but through the ones we don't. That night, I learned that sometimes God doesn't speak through thunder or miracles. He speaks through whispers, through strangers, through quiet warnings we almost ignore. An old woman's words saved a life, exposed a lie, and reminded me of something we all forget, that pain doesn't always come to destroy us. Sometimes it comes to awaken us, to remind us that seeing isn't just with the eyes, it's with the heart. So the next time you feel that small voice nudging you to look closer, to ask, to listen, to care, don't ignore it. Because behind the laughter, behind the perfect smiles, someone might be crying for help. Be the one who notices. Be the one who listens. Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more people who see what others don't. And if you ever doubt the power of one small act, remember her. The old woman at the wedding, who turned her grief into someone else's salvation. That's what real love looks like. That's what real courage is.